Hello again, industry explorers. Welcome to another episode of the Start Your Career In series. We are going to learn how to start our career in rope access, specifically when it comes to being a supervisor and an instructor. We have with us Mike Stevenson from the Rope Access and Climbing podcast. How are you today, Mikey?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm excited to have you here, man. Your podcast and your YouTube channel it's so awesome. I'm so glad that I had access to it going through my rope access training.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, man. So what is rope access?
Rope access is the easier means of access for, the general population. Obviously, depending on the industry that you come from, you may be familiar with airwear platforms or scaffolding, stuff like that, ladders and stuff like that. So what rope access is gives you a means to access the area via ropes to, overcome your job or do your job in a faster, more effective, safer means.
I love it. And so for those who are very, very much involved in fall arrest and fall protection, I think rope access is one of the safest means of accessing unusual spots because you're constantly in a state of suspension. So the likelihood of falling is slim to none. Especially after getting the training that you have to get for this. I love rope access. To me, it's safer than having to climb around using dual Y lanyards.
Yeah, and on that, if you are doing a comparison between fall arrest, your standard means, or rope access, like you said, you're in suspension, and in the event that something happened, your overall fall distance is substantially less than what you would generate in a standard 4 or 6 foot Y lanyard or standard fall arrest lanyard. Yeah,
or 12 foot fall, free fall. Awesome. So where can you do rope access?
You can do rope access anywhere in the world. It depends on the certification scheme that you want to adhere to. The biggest ones in North America is IRATA and SPRAT. SPRAT being based out of the southern United States, but is recognized worldwide. And then IRATA is from the UK. It's been around the longest and is kind of the biggest organization and has the biggest rule book when it comes down to what you can and cannot do. I lost your audio. I can't hear you.
I hit the mute button.
There we go. I was like, what? Okay.
Blooper reel. What type of rope access jobs exist?
Rope access is really anything. You can go work on a wind turbine. You can wash windows on the side of a building in downtown Manhattan, whatever it is. You can, work in the oil and gas industry and weld off ropes. You can do pipe fitting off ropes. So the jobs are endless. It's a big, massive umbrella of what rope access kind of encompasses.
It's a lot of fun, that's for sure. So what is the difference between a level 1, 2, and 3 when it comes to either a SPRAT or IRATA certification?
So think of it, and it doesn't matter if it's a SPRAT or a IRATA certification. Think of it as simple as possible here. So a level 1 would be your entry level technician, being able to get from point A to point B through a series of different maneuvers, self-sufficient under the direct supervision of a greater level. So being a level 2 or level 3. A level 2 would be a technician that has obviously greater experience and is kind of known as like a rescue technician or a lead hand kind of thing. And their training aspect really spends a lot of time on rigging and then the additional rescues. So anything you can do as a level 1, a level 2 should be able to rescue you through any of those maneuvers. And then level 3 is your over-encompassing supervisor of any rope access work being undertaken. And then you have obviously your instructors beyond that point.
And to be an instructor, do you have to be a level 3 or is there like a level 4?
There is no level 4 in IRATA or SPRAT. And some people, let me know in the comments or whatever. But the soft system, the Norwegian system, actually does have level 4. I don't know much about the soft system, so I'm not going to comment on it. But in IRATA, there is an actual instructor standard and instructor certification. In SPRAT, they currently don't have a designation for instructor.
Oh, interesting. And is that something that you would like to see different with the SPRAT certification? Would you like to see like a designated instructor training?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And this has been a big thing where IRATA got on the bandwagon a long time ago. Where before it was called you got your trainer designation. And then in 2014, they changed it to instructor designation. And really what it comes down to is once you have that designation, you've spent an allotted amount of time in training centers, doing the training, and then being evaluated as an instructor, and then having to do a written exam at the end of it, kind of to make sure that you understand what needs to be, demonstrated and the information that has to be presented to the students that are, learning. Obviously, come Monday morning, they could be on a job going to work, and we want to know that, they've got all the information, and, they're actually competent to do what they need to do come Monday morning, and they're safe.
So do you have your SPRAT or IRATA certification?
I am a IRATA level 3 instructor. So I have my IRATA level 3, and then I have my instructor designation. And then my SPRAT designation expired many, many moons ago, but I am planning to get my SPRAT level 3 either in the next year or so.
Nice. Good for you.
Yeah. So I'll be a dual level 3 eventually, just currently not yet.
So let me type up this banner. What are the benefits and drawbacks of being dual certified?
So a great question. Really, there's no benefit, no drawbacks. And I guess the biggest drawback is financial. Obviously, you have to do 2 different courses. You have to do a SPRAT certification and an IRATA certification. So that'd be a drawback. So unless you're, at a facility that you can do both at the same time, you're going to be, paying out of pocket twice to get the same information over and over again by 2 different people. So that'd be a drawback. But the benefit, there's really no benefit in North America to have a dual certification. However, that being said, unfortunately, if you're working in Canada, if you're a SPRAT technician at all, you're limiting how much work you can actually get. As if you want to work in the oil and gas industry, there's very few companies, maybe a handful of companies that actually are in the oil and gas industry in Canada with that hire SPRAT technicians. The majority of oil and gas companies the majority of oil and gas companies working in that field are IRATA companies, and therefore cannot hire SPRAT technicians.
Oh, interesting. And that's very much prevalent in Canada.
It is in Canada. Yeah, absolutely. In the United States, SPRAT is a lot bigger than what IRATA is. Obviously, it's kind of based out of the States, so it's kind of a little bit more prevalent. But in Canada, IRATA is the more prevalent organization. So if you have your SPRAT, you can't work for an IRATA company. If you have an IRATA certification, you can work for either IRATA or SPRAT companies.
Oh, so that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Huh. Well, that's like a truth bomb or quite the industry insight.
Yeah.
Because I know a lot of people have that question is, should I get SPRAT or should I get IRATA? And, in the United States, again, it's, SPRAT is more prevalent here, but I never know what to say to viewers who may be based in Europe.
Yeah. So if you're working in Europe, It's a very high probability it's IRATA. Sprat is starting to get a little bit of footprint there, but they're not a large organization yet there in the UK or other parts of the world. Australia is another place that is starting to really grow, but still an IRATA certification allows you to work for Sprat, but a Sprat will not allow you to work for an IRATA company. It's a sad reality, but that's kind of where the rules are at right now. Maybe that'll change in due time. Who knows?
That's very interesting. But no, thank you so much for sharing that. People ask all the time which one they should get. So we did a poll on LinkedIn and people wanted to hear about rescue planning and coordination. Where do you even begin when you're thinking about rescue?
That's going to really start that's really going to start on the industry that you're working in. So if you're working in the cityscape, so washing windows, doing building maintenance, stuff like that, obviously you got to start looking at the rescue planning, and depending on the scope of work, you may even have to coordinate with your local fire department. And just kind of give them a heads up that, hey, I'm working on this building, this is what we're doing, and stuff like that, just to kind of give them an idea. So, in the event that there is a rescue, they can kind of plan on the fact that it's a rope access job and not a swing stage or something like that. I don't have a whole lot of experience in building maintenance window washing, so I can't really comment too much on that. But when you're looking at your hazards, making sure that you're doing all you can, and have multiple sets of ropes side by side, so any level 1 can rescue from an adjacent set of ropes, as both in Sprat and IRATA, that's how it's trained and assessed and evaluated, is rescue from an adjacent set of ropes. So make sure that you have 2 ropes side by side, always have that plan and ready to go. At the end of the day, now moving into the oil and gas sector, where I have the majority of my experience, excluding training, rescue planning really comes down from crew to crew, and coordination with the fire department. So obviously by the time that the company shows up on site, the rescue plans and the general safe job plans have been ran through the fire chief on site, and they're kind of aware of what's happening. Now, a rescue plan is when it has to be conducted before every job, and at that point, you sit down as a crew, you kind of look at your job, you kind of rig it up accordingly, and you kind of have an idea. Now, things will kind of change depending on the job, but ultimately, we're going to try to be rescue ready and have that plan ahead of time, look at our hazards, and coordinate with everybody on the crew so they know exactly, in the event that something can happen, who to call on the radio, what channel they're on, where your emergency meeting points are, where your assembly points are, who's actually going to conduct the rescue. And then you're going to, have some bystander people to help out. And at the end of the day, by the time that the fire department shows up to help out your emergency response team, a firefighter is really good at just listening to orders. So if you tell a firefighter, hey, grab this rope and start walking, they're really good at that. So, don't be afraid to, ask for help from outside personnel, if it's just quickly just grab a rope, but obviously integrate that into your rescue plan. And then coordination, obviously, when it comes down to it, is making sure that everybody on your crew is coordinating with whoever is the command of that rescue. And there can only be one chief. Okay. There can only be one chief. So whoever's in charge has to own it, and whoever's in charge has to be able to tell people where to go. Because if someone else tries to jump in and tries to take the lead, there is going to be conflict.
Absolutely. During the rescue, that's not a time to say, oh, maybe we could do it this way. right? You don't really have time to think about different ways. That's what training is for. That's what everyday rope access is for, is really solidifying those skill sets so that in the event of a rescue, you know exactly what to do. You know exactly how to maneuver wherever you've got to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that, you know, I don't want to say gets overlooked, but it is something that people don't really focus enough time on. You know, they're always on under the gun, like get the job done, that's fine. That's fine. But you have to also understand that in the event that something were to go wrong, and, you know, based on stats, things don't go wrong too often, thankfully. But in the event that something does go wrong, you got to know that you got to know what's happening, and you got to know where to go and who to ask and stuff like that. That has to be understood from everybody on the crew.
In the event of a rescue, what are some things that you keep in mind when it comes to trauma at height? And I don't just mean suspension trauma. I just mean any kind of injuries that could potentially have been sustained to have, you know, to have either caused that person to fall or during the fall.
So first and foremost, mechanism of injury is the biggest thing. So first is, what are we dealing with? Did the person get punched in did the person literally punch themselves in the face? And yes, that does happen in rope access. Working on a big wrench, pulling on a wrench, and the wrench slips and just knocks themselves out from the butt end of a wrench. That has happened.
Oh man.
Absolutely would suck, but it does happen. So what's the mechanism of injury? If it's something like that, it's, you know, obviously you know what's going on. You're not really worried about head and spinal. In the event of a fall, so say that there was a mainline failure, did the person come in contact with something during the fall? So say that they fell and landed on, you know, an I-beam or an air conditioning unit or something like that. Then we have a mechanism of injury of potential head and spinal. Now that is where it gets really tricky. And I hope that your fire department, your ERT team is really close by, because you're going to have to deal with head and spinal while in suspension. And that's not going to be fun. But then, you know, if it's a clean fall, then it's just, you know, maybe just rig up another set of ropes, get over to the person, get the person onto you, unweight that first system, and then get down to the ground as fast as possible. And, you know, maybe the person just kind of dislocated their shoulder as they fell and something like that, or whatever the case is. So, you know, first and foremost, you got to figure out what the injury is or what the mechanism is, and then kind of step back from there and see if you have to escalate it to ERT or not, right? Obviously, when it comes to first aid, with majority of rope access level 3s, you either have a basic or a standard first aid. So, you know, either an 8-hour or a 16-hour first aid. I don't know what it's like in the States, the designations, but I don't know, you have St. John's Ambulance, I'm assuming, or Red Cross.
Yeah, we do. And I believe it's 8 hours of training for basic first aid.
Yeah, so that's kind of the same here. So we have basic and standard, which is 8 or 16. It's not going to really, you know, you're prolonging death, putting a Band-Aid on about as much as you can do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And try not to, you know, get someone's broken whatever out of alignment. You know, it's interesting because in first aid, if someone has broken a bone, or if there's a protrusion or something is really disfigured, you keep it in place. You may splint it in place. You don't try to correct it. But when you're trying to get in and out of like tight places, or if you're suspended from ropes, that may be a lot more complicated. Do you take splints up with you? If, you know, do you take a first aid bag clipped to your harness if you're going to go conduct a rescue? I mean, do you consider that? Would you consider, like, if there's external, you know, heavy external bleeding, would you climb up with your tourniquet and any of that stop the bleed gear?
That's a great question. And, in most cases, most level 3s, most level 2s may not be equipped to deal with severe bleeding in the immediate moment. And the time is going to be spent trying to get the person to the ground as fast as possible.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's scary. I mean, it's very serious stuff.
It is. And hopefully the ERT and the medical aid is at the ground waiting for you. And, as long as you're not talking like an artery bleed,
Right.
you'll make it to the ground.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, rope access, would you need to do that if you were doing any like grinding or hot work operations or welding? Yeah. I wouldn't want to mess up on ropes. That's for sure.
Yeah. Anytime someone's doing hot work at height, that's one of the most dangerous things that we can do off ropes is, any sort of hot work.
So what are some things that you carry with you to every single job site, and not just the basic harness and an ascending device, descending device, secondary safety device, and ropes? What are like the rescue specific tools that you carry with you to every single job site?
Myself personally, I carry a basic kit. I don't carry much, and if I do carry something, depending on the scope of work, I'll carry a foot loop that I make out of cordelette, and that just if I have an individual that's much larger on the crew, like I'm 140 pounds on a fat day. So, if I have a guy that's 200.
No way, man. How tall are you?
I'm like 5'9", 5'10" on a really tall day. If I'm
on a really tall day. Oh man. Every day is my fat day right now, man. I weigh more than you. That's insane.
Yeah, I'm 140 pounds on a fat day, but like if I have a crew member that's 275, right, I'm going to be carrying around a foot loop of cordelette, because then I can automatically put in that 3-to-1, 5-to-1 mechanical advantage to pick them off their chest ascender in the event. Now, that being said, I do everything I can to rig the ropes in a way that I don't physically have to get on ropes. That's an ideal situation, but not necessarily is that possible.
Sorry, I got slightly distracted. We got a question that came in. Actually, sorry, it wasn't a question. Ryan just commented, arborists carry tourniquets often if they are smart. Seen them used in the rescue world to save lives. Awesome. Yeah. I mean, I haven't done too much rope access work. And I've been teaching rescue for ENSA, and we're teaching wind turbine technicians who aren't climbing on ropes, but they are still going into confined spaces. So there's different factors to keep in mind when you're planning for a rescue in that sort of scenario, or even in the entertainment industry, if you're trying to plan a scenario for that. And for entertainment, for example, there's catwalks. You go on the catwalks. If something happens, that's where you should keep your rescue kit. That's where you should keep your first aid kit, first aid trauma kit. If you're really concerned about potentially having heavy bleeding, if you're using a saw up there, or, doing who knows what else, hot work, if you get some serious burns, I'm going to want to have, dressings ready to go and ice packs if I need to. So, but when it comes to rope access, it's definitely a whole other animal, right? Because you're literally in the middle of nowhere on two lines.
You are in the middle of nowhere, but excluding wind turbine work, you're going to have people that are readily available for and on standby for rescue most times. Okay. Wind turbines is one of those rarities, power generation. So if you're working on a hydro dam or something, you're in remote areas. Okay. So, you may end up having, like, the job requirement may require that you have, your EMR or your, 8-hour advanced or a wilderness first aid, because you are more remote. keep in mind that I'm talking generally in either cityscapes or oil and gas where you have paramedics very close by. Like I believe it was Ryan there mentioned that arborists carry tourniquets and bandage and stuff like that. That's a great thing for arborists because one, yes, they are generally in cityscapes where medics are close by, but they're working with chainsaws and saws all the time. So if something happens, it is more likely that it needs to be rapidly dressed than what a rope access injury would be.
Gotcha.
If that makes sense. If that makes sense a little bit, yeah.
It all goes back to the first way that you answered this question, which is all about knowing the mechanism of injury, which is going to further determine what else to do from there.
Yeah. And planning, like, that mechanism of injury is going to, like, the planning stage is going to kind of bring into that aspect, like, okay, I'm planning for this job, right? And then this is the mechanism of injury. The person is up there working with a wrench. Probability of like something severe happening, pretty low, right? But an arborist in that case, like in their planning stage, in their practicing stage, they're like, yeah, like we're using a chainsaw, 75 feet off the ground in this massive poplar tree, and there's no rapid evac on this situation. If something happens, like heaven forbid, they put the saw down and cut their leg, that's an immediate massive trauma situation that you have to deal with.
Absolutely.
So, you're looking at that planning stage, and that planning stage is extremely important, and not enough people, I would say, stress on that or take the time to do an essential assessment of that rescue or the potential of rescue.
Yeah. And not just the potential for rescue, but the potential for what kind of injuries that fall victim may be sustaining, which let's talk quickly about suspension trauma. I hate calling it suspension trauma because that's not quite right, but
it's not quite right.
Orthostatic intolerance.
Orthostatic intolerance.
Yeah, basically someone going into shock in the air.
Yeah.
I would love to hear your thoughts on, suspension mitigation and on caring for the victim when they are either up or down from safety. Because I know sometimes in the case of rope access, it's not always that you have to go back down to the ground. Sometimes you got to bring the person back up. So once they're in an area of safety, what do you do to care for someone who potentially has orthostatic intolerance?
So this is a great, interesting conversation. I'm going to start out. I'm no expert in this topic, but at the end of the day, keep in mind, rope access and arborist harnesses are a lot more conducive to prolonging the onset of this potential thing that we're talking about here. It's not like you have a fall arrest lanyard or fall arrest harness where you're attached at the back and you are essentially helpless in that state, right? Generally in a rope access, well, in all cases in rope access, if you're doing it, you have foot loops readily available. You have things that you can stand on and unweight the harness. However, in the event that somebody is incapacitated, they don't have the ability to stand up. So now, this is an interesting thing is, people talk about backup devices being off the sternal. So the ASAP manufactured by Petzl has to be attached at the sternal to keep you in an upright position if you fall. Keeps you in a more comfortable position, keeps you upright. And, at the end of the day, you're not choking on your tongue. That'd be a bad situation. And then you have other devices like the Goblin and the Duck and stuff like that. They can kind of be attached other places. Is it better to be attached to the sternal? Obviously, because it keeps you in an upright position, but also the natural state of life is flat. So if you come into a position of being in shock like this, you pass out because your body's not getting enough oxygen to the brain, and it makes you pass out to go horizontal to get oxygen to the brain. Mm-hmm. These devices are preventing that aspect of happening, where if you were attached to the waist, you'd kind of death sprawl and lay backwards, and it would end up naturally happening a little bit. Is it the best, most comfortable position? Heck no, not at all. But yeah, you know, you have to play this game. But how do you deal with it in rope access? Well, if you are rescuing somebody that has fallen in fall arrest, you automatically assume or treat them as such, that they are potentially exposed to this onset. And then just kind of get them to the ground. Rope access technicians are not paramedics. So get to the ground, keep them relatively suspended, and just kind of like keep them in an upright-ish position, and just kind of pump their legs and just kind of slowly move the blood flow through. If you throw them into cardiac arrest, I don't know if that's true. I don't know. Like I said,
It's not.
No expert.
No, it's, yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of one of those things. But try to get the blood flowing, do what you can, and try to take care of the person the best you can. The biggest thing about all first aid is just try to, you know, make them comfortable.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, when it comes to orthostatic intolerance, they're basically going into shock. And so, like you said, their body's natural reaction is to pass out so that they can lay flat and get the blood back to their brain, so they're not fighting gravity. But when they're suspended upright, that's not the situation. And the reason why, if you are waiting for a rescue or you are conscious, it's important to pump your legs, flexing your calves, because there's deep leg veins in there. And when you contract the muscles, it helps pump the blood back to your heart, so you can prolong the onset of certain symptoms. When you get someone back down to the ground, it's best to just follow first aid protocol. It's just best to follow whatever your first aid training taught you, which is for shock, put them in the recovery position because they may start to vomit. You know, you may want to cover them with a blanket. Don't give them anything to drink, you know, just follow standard first aid procedures. Yeah. And so there have been studies on it, and the notion that if you lay someone down flat too quickly, it may put them into cardiac arrest is not a proven concern. It's not something that's ever been proven. It's theoretical. So one researcher argues that you are putting someone at a theoretical risk of cardiac arrest rather than a known risk for hypoxia. So yeah, it's all about that blood flow. And I appreciate hearing about all this rescue planning and coordination. Ryan gave us a really excellent quote I'd like to share. In these big grandiose things, if you can get it right from the beginning, then everything else tends to be right. If you get it sloppy on any of the rigging, then before you know it, you have a big package of sloppy stuff and it can get away from you. Yep. Yeah,
100%. Yeah.
He also sent a comment just now about packaging the victim. Is that something part of SPRAT or IRATA training?
It's not. And this is really going into the NFPA stuff where they spend a lot of time. So your high angle rescue, so operations technician level, I think they're trying to get away from those. But the NFPA stuff really spends a lot of time talking about packaging and spends time teaching people how to properly package people in litters and skids and stuff like that. So it's something that I would like to see in the rope access side of things eventually. I don't know. GWO
also will talk about packaging the victim. Of course, if they're incapacitated, if they're passed out, unable to move, you know, anywhere in the turbine. New words. I'm going to make up my own words. But anywhere in the turbine, if they can't rescue themselves or anything, then the other technicians, it's part of the GWO training to know how to package the victim, to maneuver them around the turbine safely so that they can get to the ground.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's actually, I would be very curious if that became more of a like a teaching point in rope access. I'd be so curious to know like some of the considerations when you're packaging someone while they're suspended in the air.
It would not be fun.
No, not at all.
Let's just put it that way. It would not be fun.
Not at all. So going back to our LinkedIn poll, people also wanted to hear about job planning and supervision. So we talked a lot about rescue planning. Let's talk about actual job planning. Take us through your thought process there.
So job planning, you know, it's a lot of, for me, I always think about the rescue and then adjust the job accordingly. But at the end of the day, when it comes to, you know, scoping out work and stuff like that, you have to kind of have an idea of what you're looking for and then start piecing together your safe job plan, or your method statement. How are the people are going to get there? How many people are going to be needed to execute the scope of work? You know, obviously the immediate known hazards. And then, you know, if there are going to be any specialty trades or any specialty work that has to be executed, and then bringing those people in. So, you know, you could be a rope access level 3 with no trade, looking at a job and have an idea of, okay, this is what we need to do, but it can only go as far as whatever your experience is. And then you have to bring somebody in that has the trade-based specific skill set to finish out the scope of work or the safe job plan and collectively come together and to execute a safe job. When it comes to the supervision side of things, that'll really depend on that. So a rope access technician can really only supervise the scope of work and the technicians, people working on ropes. And then the tradesperson, there can be a supervisor specifically for the trade to execute, make sure that the trade work is being done properly and safely as well. So it's a kind of a collective thing when you have two sides. Now, obviously, there's going to be a lot of people that think that rope access level 3s should encompass all of it. Myself personally, I don't believe in that. As a ticketed tradesperson myself and a rope access level 3, I think that those two things need to be separate, because those are two totally different skill sets. And each one will independently, you know, have a sense of importance independently. So having somebody for each one is obviously a lot better situation. Can it be done where you could have one person overseeing both? Yeah, like myself, I could supervise, you know, trade work in my discipline and rope access, providing I felt comfortable with that. But having that ability to say no and, hey, I'm not comfortable, and hey, we need to bring somebody else to supervise this on the trade side of things because I want to focus on the rope access, the rescue plan, focus on that side. That's fine too. But having that ability to kind of, you know your limitations is probably the biggest thing. And then when you're out on the job, actually working and supervising the crew, step one is try to keep the crew's morale in check. Okay. As soon as there's someone that's poisonous, someone that has a bad attitude, your entire crew, your entire job is going to suffer. So yeah, supervision.
I love hearing this right now. I truly do.
Part of supervision is knowing your crew and keeping them happy. I know it sounds silly, but you'd be surprised how much more work you get out of your crew when they're happy. So step one is keep them happy. Step two, know your strengths and weaknesses. Step three, know if you have a real strong person and a real weak person, and inevitably it will happen, put those two together and create a happy medium. Don't put too strong together and then too bad together, because you'll never get anything done with these. And you get a crap ton done with these people, and then these people are going to get angry because they're outdoing these people. And then you're going to create animosity between both crews. So take a strong and a weak, put them together, make a medium. So
I can't remember which book I read, but if you actually do that, where you have you're matching a strong performer with a weaker performer, or someone who may just be a newer person on the job, the newer or weaker performer is going to elevate to that level of strength.
Yeah.
And I think that's such a fantastic phenomenon, and you see it everywhere, right? Yeah. I would love to be the dumbest person in every room, because then I know I'm in the right room.
Exactly. I feel like I'm always in that position. I just walk in and I'm always in the back corner being like, I don't want anyone to notice me. Unfortunately, I put myself on YouTube, go figure.
Yeah.
But all right, so take care of your crew. A lot of things are going to happen. Okay. When people are happy, they're going to pay attention to safety. When you're having people pay attention to safety, your job's going to get done in a safe, controlled fashion. Don't worry about the scope. Don't worry about anything, because it'll kind of fall into place.
Yeah. And this sounds really silly, but don't treat your crew like children. Treat them like adults.
Well, everyone has their puppy face and their puppy, sound. Anytime you talk to a puppy dog, you have that voice and that look. Don't treat your worker like that. Okay.
Yeah, that's actually really, that's a good way that may be a better way to put it.
Yeah. Like, at the end of the day, if you're working with tradespeople, treat them like a tradesperson. Yeah. Right. Don't try to, treat them with white gloves, pearly white gloves and whatever. Just straight to the point. This is what has to get done. Delegate with a purpose. Don't just be like, well, is it okay? You're the supervisor, own it. Don't just walk around with, a fluffy scarf and, try to, pull off this magical look. It doesn't work that way. You're going to have to earn respect. Respect is not given, it's earned. And understanding and knowing that is extremely important. Because, just because you have a level 3 certification does not mean that anybody is going to respect you or needs to respect you. Okay? You have to prove yourself. You have to prove yourself to the crew. Never, ever, ever ask somebody to do something that you're not willing to do yourself. If you're not willing to jump down on your knees and do the same work and outwork that person next to you, you don't deserve to be a supervisor.
I have run into people who think being a supervisor means sitting in the truck away from the work to supervise. I guess that's not supervision. To me, supervision is leadership, and sitting far away from the crew, far away from your work, in air conditioning while everybody else is probably sweating their butts off. That's not leadership. And if that's your mentality, you have no business being in that role.
Yeah. And then, when it comes down to it, know your rescue plan, know what's happening, own it, and really just understand all dynamics. And understand you can say, I don't know. It's fine. Or no, I can't do that. I don't have the skill set. At the end of the day, if you're a level 3 and you've worked in the industry and if your logbook, and your logbook cannot lie, it's there for eternity. It's as long as you have that logbook, it will be there. If your logbook has only an elevation of 100 feet on it, are you competent to go and supervise a job at 600 feet on a smokestack?
That sounds like a great day. I mean, I'm kind of an adrenaline junkie, so that just sounds great to me. I need to work up to that.
But at the same time, working at 100 feet is a lot different than working at 600 feet. And that level 3, that's super stoked. And it's like, yes, I get to go to the top of the smokestack. That's great. But if you go over that rail, you go over that lip of that smokestack at 600 feet, your ass cheeks pinched together so tight you don't know if you're going to poop again. And you can't exude confidence on your level 1s. Maybe you need to admit to the fact that you're not ready for that job.
Yeah, because people's lives are quite literally on the line.
No pun intended.
No, it was fully intended. So
absolutely.
I had a couple of questions. When you are the level 3 on a job site, are you climbing? Because I had someone
Oh, yeah.
once tell me that you don't want to send, if you don't have to, don't send your best climber up to climb. Because if something bad happens to that person, now you have to rely on the second, third, fourth, 10th best climber, right?
So who says your level 3 is your best climber?
Ooh.
I've seen level 1s out climb level 3s, hands down. So not necessarily is your best climber always your level 3. It doesn't always work that way. 9 times out of 10, probably. Obviously, the individual has more experience than, majority of level 1s. But I know level 1s that have been doing it for longer than I have. So,
and they just like staying at, some people just like staying at that position because not everybody has the desire to take on leadership roles, because with great power comes great responsibility. And I bet you have a ton of responsibilities when you're supervising any rope access job.
Absolutely. So just because the individual is a level 1, his logbook will tell you their logbook will tell you how long they've been in the industry. I've only been in the industry 11 years. But I've worked with level 1s that have been in the industry for 15 years, and they're just happy being a level 1, right? They don't want any more responsibility. They're happy just going up, putting on their installation or doinking their UT set and calling it a day. And they're amazing climbers. They're amazing for what they do, but they don't want any more responsibility on the rope access scope. They're there to get to and from their job, and that's kind of where they're at, and that's fine. More power to them. Like showing up and just recerting every 3 years and just taking a nice easy week. Heck yeah, why wouldn't you? So as I digress, apologies there, but do level 3s? Do I climb? Absolutely, I climb as much as I can. But I'm also going to reverse that and say that I make a game out of it for myself. And this may sound bizarre and maybe even a little bit funny, but myself, I've tried to make a game out of things. And I try to rig up as many ropes as I possibly can without putting a harness on.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense because you're totally eliminating the potential for falling.
I'm eliminating the potential for falling, but there's a very high probability that I could probably execute my rescue without a harness on. That being said, anytime that somebody is climbing, I will always have a harness on. Even if it's rigged up to lower, rigged up to haul, whatever the case is, I will always have a harness on. But I just kind of make it a fun little game to try to, make it a little bit more interesting than, just a straight set of ropes. Yeah. But yeah, if I can climb, I do. I enjoy climbing. That's just who I am. I started out as a rock climber, as a mountaineer, and got into rope access. So I enjoy climbing. Do I think that level 3 should not climb? Absolutely not. No. Why? That's the reality of it is you're going to go out on a job and you're going to be the level 3 and you're going to have 2, maybe 3 level 1s. They could even be fresh out of the course from last Friday or last Saturday. Right. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Right. You're between a rock and a hard place. You have to climb to get those ropes there so those individuals can go to work. Can you call the office and say, oh yeah, so I need a level 2 because I can't get off the ground. I can't climb. The office is going to come back with a swift F you if you so choose, but
yeah, well, I guess we won't be needing you for the rest of the week. Goodbye.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So can you return the truck to the office and we'll
on your way back?
Yeah.
I had another question specifically about the JHA or the JSA. Do you
whatever you want to call them?
Whatever you want to call it. Do you fill one out for every job, every venue, or every single day?
Every single job.
So if you had a job lasting a week, then you only fill out one JSA for that week?
It depends. So like if it's like window washing, the scope is the same every day, but you would fill in a new JSA or FLAHA or whatever you want to call it for each independent day. if you are on an oil and gas site and you pull a permit for one location, that's going to be one JSA. You finish that job, go to another one, you're going to fill one out for that. Now, if it's a continuous thing, you're going to fill it out every single day for the same scope of work. And that's just really to make sure that every day you're coming back and refreshing and, hey, yesterday we encountered this. Okay, we're going to add that today onto it. So, okay, these are our hazards. This is what we encountered yesterday. We're going to add that. So collectively, we have all of this. Hope that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. I would love to learn more about how you become a better instructor.
First, absolutely sucking at instructing. Step one.
Wait, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Suck at instructing?
You have to fail to become better. So
all right. I feel like there's some stories here, so please.
Okay, my most humbling experience as an instructor, as a level 3, whatever you want to call it. First day teaching, my mentor was up on the mezzanine overseeing. Day 1, 8 level 1s in the class. I start talking. By about 10 o'clock in the morning, everyone's asleep. Because I'm talking to people that have absolutely no clue the difference between a yellow nylon rope you buy at Walmart and a life-saving rope that you pay $1.75 a meter for that is rated for 7,000 pounds. They don't care. Mm-hmm. They know that they showed up to tie knots. They have no idea what you're talking about. So you got to, understand your audience, know your audience, and fail. But you also have good mentors to kind of, keep you on track, right? But you also have to have a mentor that allows you to make mistakes so you can learn from your mistakes.
I love the growth mindset that you've adopted.
Yeah. First you have to suck to become better. You have to fail to become better. You don't just wake up one day and you're like, I'm amazing. Well, you may, but you're probably not.
Some days I do. And some days I really don't.
Yeah. But yeah, you got to build, being an instructor is not being a level 3 supervisor. Being an instructor is its own entity. You can be an amazing rope access level 3. You can be so amazing, personality wise, a great team player, a great mentor in the field. But stepping into a training center and dealing with people from the general public that have never, ever tied a knot in their life before, never even seen a carabiner for the first time, it's a different alley completely. It's a different entity.
And those types of people who are the type of person who is going to be entering a rope access class is likely not a person who's very interested in PowerPoint presentations or very interested in keynote speaking. I mean, keynote speaking can be actually really cool if you're into the speaker, but they want to get out and do stuff. Well, I want to get out and do stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of how I try to bring it up to my class, my students, when I'm talking to them, and I'm just like, let's be honest here. Okay, we're all paid from here down. Okay, At the end of the day, we're not paid to use this thing. And we're all really good with these. Mm-hmm. You know why? Do you know why I know that? Why? Is because we're not engineers sitting behind a desk.
Good point. Very good point.
We're tradespeople. Tradespeople are mechanical people. And those primarily are the people that I'm working with. So yeah, if you're an engineer, you're probably not standing in front of me listening to me talk for 5 days.
I don't know what the hybrid between tradesperson and engineer would be, because there are some days where I'm like more of a trades type most days. There's just every once in a while I'm like, oh, let me do some research on standards. Standards are super boring to most people, but I read them and I'm like, all right, well, I get super nerdy with them.
I'm a total nerd. Code books and me get along all the time. It's kind of one of those things. It's weird. I don't know why, how, what, whatever, but code books put people to sleep. Code books keep me awake.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just who I am. That's maybe why I'm in this position. But I became a level 3 to instruct. I wanted to teach. That's just who I am. I'm an educator. I want to help people. I want to, expand my knowledge on other people the best that I possibly can. Trying to be as humble as possible. And that's really going to help you become a better instructor, is just kind of empathize with the people that are trying to learn. And one thing that I find when I've trained level 3s to become instructors is they have a hard time putting themselves in that position again, because could be many, many, many years since they've been in that position, right?
Since they've been a beginner.
Yeah, exactly. Right. So they kind of forget about it. It takes a little bit to kind of pull them back a little bit and to kind of let them see that side of things. And just be patient with people. Understand that people traditionally on a day-to-day will take 7 or 8 times. They have to hear it or see it 7 or 8 times to actually fully understand it. Where, you're out on a job site and your boss just keeps yelling at you. I told you once, I told you twice. If I have to tell you again, you're out of here. That's not a good supervisor. Right. Because humans need to hear it or see it 7 or 8 times to fully understand it. And having the patience to be able to, comprehend that, but yet execute that forward and just be like, okay, I've shown you how to open this carabiner 5-6 times. You're still not getting it. Well, okay, maybe that person needs to see it 10-15 times, but
and it's having
you can't be judgmental. You can't be judgmental, right? Everyone learns at a different pace. Everyone learns differently. Language barriers is a huge problem. Huge problem.
Do you speak Quebecois?
Oh no, I speak English, and I struggle with English. So no Francais for me. No, even though I live in Canada and French is one of our natural languages, but where I came from, French was not very well liked where I came from. So, but one of my biggest regrets was not learning French. But anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I wish I was fluent in Spanish. There's so many instances in which that language would have been super helpful.
Oh, traveling? Traveling. Spanish or French, if you learned both those languages, and they're relatively similar, supposedly. Like I said, I struggle with English, so good luck. Yeah. So hopefully I answered your question. Hopefully it kind of got the gist of, building instructor skills out of the way there.
Yeah, absolutely. The patterns that I'm hearing is know your audience, know that it may take some people more times to practice than others. People learn at different paces. People come from different backgrounds and experience levels. Have no judgment cast on anybody and have patience with them.
Yeah. I want to add one thing to the judgment side of things. This is something that I've encountered time and time again. And I really don't have a good way to approach it. So bear with me here. Upgrades, going from 1 to 2 or 2 to 3. Okay. I've received phone calls from level 3s being like, hey, I heard this person's on your course. And I'm like, yep. Well, the person's not ready. Well, why did you sign their logbook then? Right? So, if the person's not ready, maybe it's the person that's signing the logbook that's not doing a good enough job at mentoring. Now, I can't pass judgment on a person that comes into the class, providing the person meets the criteria set out by the organization, either SPRAT or IRATA. If they meet their minimum hour requirement and their time frame requirement, I, as an instructor, can't judge them. I have to look at the book. If that tells me the information I need, that person is just like anybody else. No matter who calls me on the line and says, hey, this person's not ready, it doesn't matter. I don't take what rumors say. The person in the time has to prove to me that they deserve to be there.
Oh, rumors are horrible. I'm sure I've been on not the receiving end, but the subject matter of some phone calls. Oh, don't hire her. She doesn't know what she's talking about. And on a personal level, then I'll go on job sites and I've had people say to me, hey, you actually know what you're doing, actually. Hey, you're actually pretty cool. Don't listen to rumors. Don't spread rumors. But I love what you say about not judging someone who meets the minimum criteria, because when they're in your class to learn. You're an instructor. They're supposed to learn from you.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
You know?
But also at the same time, mentorship needs to be done in the field as well. And, those level 3s need to step up to the plate and actually do a better job of mentoring.
I think it'd be a really great idea to have a roundtable panel with you and others from other industries to talk about mentorship. I think that would be a fantastic live stream.
Set it up. Let's make it happen.
Absolutely. So Ryan, 30 minutes ago, mentioned he would love to hear about your rope access competition experience.
I don't know what he's talking about.
Oh, no. Please do tell.
Well, great question. And hello, Ryan. Thanks for tuning in. That's awesome. So the rope access competition. So for the people that are unaware of the rope access competition, this individual is speaking of, that is the Petzl rope trip. Goes on every 2 years. Petzl puts on a kind of world championship. Now, due to COVID, 2020 World Championship in Singapore has been postponed, canceled, diverted, whatever you want to call it. But hopefully we can get back on the train and get back into the competition scheme. So anyways, my history in the competition world is 2016 Petzl rope trip, Salt Lake City. I was part of a team based out of Canada called the RAT team. We attended the competition, complete underdogs, and that was probably the best part about it, being the underdog. Showing up and just trying to be the best team competing in Canada. That was our goal. We just wanted to be number one in Canada. But at the end of the day one, we see ourselves in the top 5 out of 35 teams, and we're just kind of starting to see this light at the end of the tunnel, being like, wow, we may actually podium here, and that's pretty remarkable. But obviously not letting that get it to us, and get us too excited, but kept moving forward, and it was kind of right at the bitter end. We kind of got pushed out of the top 4, so we didn't get to go to the semifinals. And ended in 5th place in 2016. It was a great starting point. We had no idea what to expect, and it was awesome. But so then from that event, we got invited to go and compete in Colombia that fall. So we headed down to Colombia, same team, and we came in 3rd place in Colombia. So that was super fun. Beautiful place. If anyone can travel to Colombia, highly recommend it. Absolutely great time. If you Google traveling to Brazil or traveling to Colombia, first thing pops up is don't make yourself look like a tourist. I don't know. I look like an albino, so I don't know how I'm not going to look like a tourist, but hey, each to their own. Anyways, make sure you like coffee and avocados. They're amazing there.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing though. You got 5th place and then 3rd in Colombia.
Yeah. So we kind of spaced apart, obviously the 2-year cycle, right? One of the teammates ended up working for another team, so we had to find another team. We went through this whole process of reestablishing our team. Tom Little was put up to our team captain, and absolutely Tom Little is top notch. If you ever get the opportunity to meet the gentleman, say hello, meet him, everything. He's just phenomenal. And then, so we added an individual from South Africa. We went to Salt Lake City 2018, February 2018, my bad. And then that was the North American Championship event. We came through, we won that event, which then qualified us to go to Germany in June of that year. So June of 2018, we headed to Germany. I took a week prior to that to, investigate the country of Belgium. Mm-hmm. Highly recommend that.
Fan of chocolate.
And waffles, just every corner is just like Waffle Houses, just everywhere. So nice. Kudos. But yeah, I went there, checked out the another rope based competition. So for the fire rescue teams, they had a competition in Belgium at the same time. So checked that out. That was awesome. And then headed over to Germany where we competed there. Came through. We did better than I think we kind of felt that we did. We weren't really too sure when we were going into the semifinals how we kind of placed, but we made it to the semifinals, made it through the semifinals, and stuff like that, and won that competition. So we won the world championship in Germany. So kudos to us, I guess. I don't know.
Nice.
But please keep in mind that was a full team thing. It's not just one person, one event that won it. It's working as a team, having great teammates, and having a leader like Tom Little that drove us to the top, and kudos to him. So I'm only one person on the team. Unfortunately, the RAT team dissolved after that. And I was really excited to kind of see where the 2020 events were going. January 2020, Absalon USA won the event in Salt Lake City that qualified them to Singapore. And obviously with the onset of COVID, we know what happened there. So moving on, I've been talking to Petzl and hoping to attend the next Petzl rope trip with my platform, and maybe you will see me kind of doing some live streams and some interviews at those next events. So pay attention to that sort of stuff when those events happen.
That would be absolutely amazing. I'm so excited for all the travels that you've done and that you're going to do in the future. Everybody, make sure you check out the Rope Access and Climbing podcast. Mikey does a fantastic job teaching everything there is to know about rope access. Anytime I have someone asking me about rope access, I tell them, hey, go check out Mikey Stevenson's podcast. This is what it is. This is what you're going to want to watch. Okay.
Thank you.
Oh yeah. All the time. I'm always turning people on to your channel.
Awesome. Thank you.
We're super over time, but I loved our conversation. And I would like to know, as we wrap it up, do you have any industry insights or last minute advice you would like to share with our audience?
Stick to your guns if you want to get into rope access. Obviously, if you have a trade that really helps you, really benefits you moving forward, because companies these days are really looking for kind of that dual purpose person, that person that can do the trade work while they're on ropes and actually execute the rope access safely. Stay humble, ask lots of questions. The only question that is stupid is the one you don't ask. And no question is too small. At the end of the day, if need be, reach out to me. I'm easy to find. I'm always willing to answer questions and have conversations. The whole platform of the Rope Access and Climbing podcast is about communication and trying to answer these questions. I don't know everything. I won't admit to knowing everything. I'm an instructor. Yeah. Okay. Whoopie-doo. But that's it, right? I don't know everything. So, I have to refer to some of my mentors as well and kind of get answers or have to do research. But it's a conversation based, right? So, right, wrong, or otherwise, as long as we're safe, that's the biggest point here. If you ever tune into the acceptable, unacceptable series that I have on YouTube, that'll kind of give you an idea of kind of my mindset there of just kind of like, is this right or wrong? And the difference of right and wrong is it safe or is it not safe?
I appreciate all of those pieces of industry insight. Wow. And I can't wait to drop links to more of your videos in our description. Ryan says, wicked awesome. Thank you so much, y'all. Thank you to everyone else who tuned in. I love it. We appreciate you. We're here for you. And without further ado, until next time, I will see you all on our next adventure. Take care, fellow explorers.